Today we're going to start off with some acceleration sprints. I'm going to do 4 sets of 10 meters, 4 sets of 20 meters, and then a couple of 30-meter reps. Main focus here is just good acceleration mechanics and just being forceful and powerful, explosive off the mark. Then for the jumps, I'm going to do a very short jump session, short approach jumps. Probably not going to move the hoop to where I usually put it. I'm just going to chuck it. We'll leave it where it is, and then I'm going to do like 2, maybe 3 step approaches into the hoop, try and get some nice dunks in. And then we're going to round out the session with some front squats. So I'm going to get into my first couple of sets of 10-meter sprints. I'm not going to measure it out. I know that 10 meters is roughly from this point here to about halfway to the end of the pillars. So I'm just going to sprint that distance and focus on hitting good shapes, really good mechanics, and make sure that I catch it on the camera as well. That was right leg. I'm going to move the camera to a slightly different angle so I can get maybe like a 3/4 or a side view of what the shapes look like. That one sucked. So I've just figured out that the mic has this feature where you can press a button and the camera will start recording remotely. So I can press this button here and it will stop recording or start recording. So I don't have to press record on the camera, then walk all the way to do the sprint. That is incredibly useful to know. What I've recently learned about the first few strides, or just sprinting in general, acceleration sprinting in general, is there's kind of 2 acceleration strategies, like 2 major acceleration strategies for different types of athletes. So for those of you that are familiar with ISA or infrasternal angle, essentially it's what your body shape and your body type is. So you can think of a wide infrasternal athlete as a bit more stocky, a bit broader, like a much wider clavicle, I guess you could say, broader shoulders, and a little bit wider in the hips. And these are generally would be considered to be more, I know powerful isn't necessarily the right word, but they're much more force dominant athletes. And so you'll see them as they're like coming out of the blocks, they're a lot wider with their stance, and they're kind of like pushing out to the sides a little bit more like this. You'll generally tend to see like much stronger, much broader, stockier athletes do that. So that's wide infrasternal angle. And then you have narrow infrasternal angle. So narrow ISA athletes, they're a lot more close together. They have, generally, they're a slighter build, and they'll be a lot more like, I guess you could say linear. I mean, the goal is to go linear with your arms, but some lateral movement is going to happen with the arm swings and just how your legs move, because your hip sockets are set a certain way. You have a certain Q angle, like the angle of your femur that it comes out. It's all going to be different depending on the athlete, but generally, narrow ISA athletes will be a lot more like really tight, really close, really narrow. I am not kidding myself. I'm obviously a wide ISA athlete. I'm not super duper thin. I have quite wide hips and I'm quite broad and stocky through my rib cage. And therefore, I'm thinking that a wider stance and like a more powerful, like wider step on every single step when I sprint would be a better or faster acceleration strategy for my infrasternal angle, but we'll have to see. So anyway, long story short, I'm experimenting now with doing slightly wider steps and allowing my legs to push wider on the first few strides. So rather than just trying to be like completely straightforward every single time, my intent is going to be to just let my legs, as I push, just let them push where they want me to push me and see if that makes any difference. Very difficult to do all this by feel without actually having to look it back, but I'm going to look at that one back on the camera and see how it looks and see if I can make any necessary adjustments on the next one. It seems like, from watching that back, You guys comment below what you think as well, but it seems like I'm rising up and I'm getting a nice explosive first step. Like the first step is nice, but then it seems like there's a little bit of a lag between like when again, it's like I'm spinning my feet. You know when a car spins its wheels, but it's not actually moving? It seems like my legs are spinning, but there's a little bit of a lag before I actually start to continue acceleration. And I think it's where just there's a too rapid of a shift in torso angle within the first stride. So I think what I need to focus on here is being a bit more controlled with those second, third, and fourth strides so that they actually are hitting the ground in time, at the right time. I'm not sure, but I'm going to give it a try. And then I wish I kind of had more attempts and had some more time to work on my accelerations, but I also want to get some jumps in today. And then there's also front squats at the end. So that being said, let's get into it. I'm going to try that one again, and my main focus here is now just pelvic tuck, pelvic tuck, pelvic tuck, pelvic tuck. I'm thrust in air. I think that's the main thing that I do wrong. I try and let my pelvis tilt back as my leg swings back, and I let that kind of, I don't even know how that fucks up the sprint, but I'm going to pelvic tuck as much as I can on this one, see how it looks. Full 30 meters this time. Let's give it a shot. So it feels like I'm not jumping super high today. Maybe the sprints fatigued me. Maybe I just didn't sleep well last night. Who knows? But that doesn't mean you can't get a quite high quality jump session in. You've got to work with what you've got. Today, it seems like what would be a good aim for the session is to hit one of every plant. So left, right, right, left, with left hand and right hand. I don't know if I'll get two-handers today. We'll try some two-handers. But off the dribble and without the dribble, so I'll try both. So I'm doing all without the dribble first, then I'm going to do all with the dribble after. Of course I get rim stuffed every damn time. I'm going to do one more make, finish on a high, end on a high, and then we'll get into our front squats. Rep scheme today on the front squats is 5 sets of 3, although I'm thinking I might turn one of those sets into a heavy single, see how heavy I can go with decent form. Form for the front squats, main focus is having a hip width distance a little bit narrower than I usually would if I was doing like a weightlifting style front squat where I'm just focusing on getting as heavy as I possibly could. What I'm looking at here is maximum forward knee travel to engage my quads. My quads are very stubborn, very hard to engage them with my torso angle. I have got good ankle mobility, so I'm going to take advantage of that and really sit, or really force my knees forwards so I can really load up those quads and just stay as upright as I physically can, although that's going to be a hard task with the length of my femurs and length of my torso, but we're going to give it a go. 120 was a little bit shaky in terms of how strong it felt, losing positions a little bit. Think I can jump it to 125 for one more heavy single, maybe 130. And then we'll see how we're feeling for triples. Dude.